Hey everybody, and welcome to my presentation on Arizona's approach to English learner instruction. Today I'm going to be walking you through Arizona's definition of English learners, some of their demographics, the Structured English Immersion Model or the SEI model, and some key instructional principles and models used in the state of Arizona. So whether you're a new educator or you're experienced in working with EL students, there's going to be something for everybody in today's presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to start off by defining what an English learner or an English language learner is. So in the state of Arizona, according to the Department of Education, they define an English learner as a student who has limited proficiency in English and whose primary language is not English. I'm going to repeat that. The English learner is a student who has limited proficiency in English and whose primary language is not English. This definition really does underscore the need for instructional approaches that help the students develop both their language and their academic skills. In other words, these students are navigating the challenge of not only mastering grade level content, but they're simultaneously acquiring the language of instruction. So they're learning math, but they're also learning how to speak the language that the math is being taught in. So now that we've talked about that, let's talk about the demographics of Arizona's EL population. It's honestly quite diverse. So in Arizona, there are more than 150,000 English learners, and about 80% of these students speak Spanish as their primary language. But it's important to note that while Spanish speakers are the largest group, Arizona's EL population is really quite diverse, as I said before. We also see significant numbers that speak Navajo, which is very interesting, Arabic, Somali, and there's some other languages in there as well that they speak at home. This diversity really means that educators need to be more mindful of the cultural and linguistic differences when planning their instruction. I want to talk about the concept of structured English immersion, and this is this really is very important. So, what is structured English immersion, or SEI for short? It's Arizona's primary instruction model for EL students. Essentially, it focuses on delivering content primarily in English and using strategies that support language acquisition through different kinds of meaningful context. Unlike sheltered English instruction, where teachers may modify their content for easier comprehension, SEI immerses the students in the language. This helps the students build both English proficiency and the academic knowledge simultaneously. So this structure is extremely important, as we said before, even in the definition. It's just so important because they're learning two different things at one time, and this helps the students to do that. So let's talk about Arizona's language development approach and the key principles that go with that. There's really four key principles to the language development approach. And the first principle emphasizes the importance of academic language for success in school. The second principle is that effective instruction involves all four language domains. All four language domains. And what are those? It is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The third principle highlights the need for active learning through engaging strategies. And the fourth principle focuses on the importance of collaboration among educators to enhance the learning experience for English learners. It is extremely important. It is so important that educators collaborate, work together so that these English learners can have a great learning experience at schools. They don't fall behind or they don't end up hating school because they don't understand what's being spoken and what's being taught. These principles guide all English learner instruction in Arizona classrooms. So you're seeing the heart of what English learning looks like in these classrooms. Now, I want to look at some evidence-based practices in EL instruction. And you will see I have 3 different resources that I pulled from here because I want to show that research does show that the most effective instruction for English learners is rooted in these evidence-based practices. This includes using culturally responsive teaching strategies that acknowledge and respect the student's background. It's so important to acknowledge where they came from. Additionally, the data-driven instruction allows educators to tailor their teaching to meet the specific needs of their EL students. Implementing these strategies not only supports language acquisition, but it also creates a more positive and inclusive classroom environment. It makes them feel good to see that their backgrounds are celebrated. Makes them feel good. Makes them feel like they're not left out or they're not isolated. Even though their learning may be harder than someone that has English as their primary language, it's important to make sure they don't feel like they are being left behind. So I want to look at the student agency and its importance. It really plays a very crucial role in the instruction of English learners. When students are given a sense of ownership over their learning, and you can see this whether it's English language learners, you can see this in math, in reading, really in any area of instruction, that when they're given a sense of ownership over their learning, it supports self-determination, confidence, and a sense of voice in the classroom. It's so important to let them feel like that they have ownership over their learning, or not really feel like it, to actually give them ownership over their learning. This is particularly important for English learners because it helps them stay motivated and engaged in the classroom. And that in turn aids language development. It aids it. It helps it a lot. By incorporating choice and self-directed learning opportunities, educators can really empower their students. And that's, I mean, every student wants to feel empowered, but especially this is important for English learners or English language learners. So I want to see, I'd like for you to see Arizona's approved SEI models because it offers several structured English immersion models to meet the diverse needs of its population. Arizona does. There's newcomer programs that are designed for recently arriving students to help them acclimate and build foundational skills. And then you have pull-out programs. They allow students to receive targeted English language instruction outside of the general classroom. So in other words, they pull them out of the classroom and give them instruction. The 2-hour model provides dedicated time for intensive language instruction, and that can be super helpful if they're needing to learn a lot of the language more quickly, really. And then you have the 50-50 dual language immersion model that balances instruction in English and another language. It is worth noting that the dual language model does require a parental waiver for participation, and that's the only one that does. But all of these SEI models are approved by the state. They're all very good. Best practices for EL instruction. Really, no matter what instructional model you use, some best practices are essential for teaching English language learners effectively. Differentiated instruction is key, which most everybody should know about differentiated instruction. But it allows educators to meet the varied needs of the ELs. Visual aids and graphic organizers, most teachers use those anyway in their classrooms. And they can be especially helpful for comprehension for English learners. You have cooperative learning strategies like peer tutoring and group work, and those are valuable opportunities for language practice and collaboration. And you can see the different research that supports that there. To really summarize everything, effective instruction for EL students requires understanding their cultural and linguistic backgrounds, taking the time to understand who they are, where they came from, promoting academic and social language development, and creating collaborative learning environments is so important. By implementing these evidence-based practices and fostering student agency, educators really can help ELs reach their full potential and succeed academically. Here are some of the references for the information presented today. These sources do provide some in-depth insights into effective instructional strategies and best practices for English learners in Arizona. And I'd just like to say thank you for taking your time. This concludes the research and the presentation. Thank you for taking your time today. You have a great day.